Good evening. Welcome back. So today's lecture will be Chapter 5 from our book, from our textbook. In Chapter 5, we'll talk about repetitions. That's the control structure where we'll be discussing three types of control structures: for loop, while loop, and do while loop. In fact, you'll find these three control structures, these three repetition or loops, in many of the other languages as well, such as Java, C#, and C, and many of the other languages. Now, some of the modern languages, they have added a couple of additional control structures as well, but you'll find these traditional control structures in most of the languages. So if you learn them tonight, you can easily transition to Java or C# or Python, and you can very quickly start learning how to create repetitions. Now, programming is not about completing one task. Programming is all about solving bigger problems. When you're dealing with bigger problems, you have to go through repetition. What it means is, the humans are complex beings, and humans do a lot of repetition. Humans talk. In many cases, that's repetition. Humans walk. That's a repetition. Humans eat, breathe. All these are repetitions. Similarly, if you're reading one record, maybe we can do repetitions so we can read many, many different records. If you can deal with one customer or one transaction with repetition, you can actually handle many, many transactions as well. So I'll be spending probably an hour or so on these control structures. After tonight's lecture, you'll be pretty comfortable with these three control structures. At the end of the discussion, I'll tell you which one actually can be applied or implemented in which situation, which one is more useful under certain circumstances. All right, let's talk about for loop. In for loop, if you can capture on the camera, I'm going to bring the camera a little closer. So the for loop is highlighted right here. Right here. For loop actually has three statements in there. So you can see I have declared and initialized a variable, int I equals to 0, I less than 10. Maybe I can turn off this projector so it's much easier to see the screen. So int I equals to 0. No, it's a blue light. It's like a disco light. So, and that's the condition. In a for loop, you have a condition here. You have variable declaration and initialization here. So you declare and initialize here. Initialize here. And you increment or decrement your variable here. Increment or decrement. So these are the three statements needed in a for loop. Now you will see later on that these can be placed in other locations as well, but we'll stick to the traditional way the for loop is used. So what happens once the variable has been declared and initialized, so the initial value of 0 is assigned to I variable, then it checks the condition, is 0 less than 10? If the condition is true, then it goes inside the body of the for loop. If the condition is true, it goes inside the body of the loop, and it starts executing the statements inside the body of the loop. If the condition is false, it exits from the for loop. So if the condition is false, it's not going to execute one or multiple statements in the for loop. Also, it increments the value of I to 1, 2, 3 in each cycle. It increments gradually. At one stage, the value of I becomes 10. Then it checks the condition, is 10 less than 10? Condition is false, and it exits from the loop. Pretty simple. What do you think where this for loop should be used? Where for loop is perfect, has a perfect scenario. So, I'm sorry? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? So you know how many cycles you want to go through. So if I know there are 10 records, or if I need to run this certain statements 10 times, that's perfect for loop. Go ahead.
And if you know how many you need to run?
Correct. You already know how many cycles you have to go through, how many repetitions you have to make. For loop is ideal for that kind of. What if you do not know how many cycles you have to run? Might be 1, might be 1,000, might be million. Then for loop might not be the ideal loop in that case. Joanna, did you have a come.
I was just going to say maybe use while loop.
That's right. So we'll talk about while loop, but for loop is used when you are absolutely sure that you want to go through that many cycles. Also, for loop you want to keep it simple. You do not want to make too complex, especially when it comes to the conditions. Especially you want to keep it simple, really, really simple. That's the nature of the for loop. So for loop is for number of times you run that loop, and that number of time is already known. So you know that 10 times or 20 times or 50 times. For loop can also be, if I can actually change the nature of the for loop, and although this is okay, I can say for, and this is already declared and initialized here, so I can leave the semicolon inside, and I can put the condition here and increment here. I can do this way as well. I can go further, and I can take this increment and put this increment inside here. I can do that one too. In fact, I can take this condition also from here and put the condition inside there. I don't recommend it. In certain cases, you probably want to do it, but if you see a code like this one, that the declaration initialization is outside, increment or decrement is inside, and even the condition is inside, then probably you want to avoid most of the time. You want to avoid that kind of cycle. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, especially when we are learning. But you might see in certain places that the way for loop looks like over here might not look in that code, especially when you're working with other team members, because they have different styles of coding. So it is legal to change what the for loop looks like. So if you see something like this, that's perfectly legal because all the necessary steps were taken. Yeah.
Because you declared I outside of the for loop, does that mean that after the for loop is done, I still exists in the rest of the nodes?
Okay, so I forgot to mention, when you declare and initialize the I variable here, it happens only in the first cycle. After the first cycle, it is not redeclared or reinitialized. So similarly here, once I have executed this line of code, so I will be going to the next line of code, so there's no chance of redeclaring or reinitializing. Same thing over here. So this declaration and initialization happen only when the for loop begins. After that, when it goes back for the second cycle, then that will not take place. It will simply check the condition. Okay? Now it looks pretty simple. It is simple, but you will see that we can do amazing things with for loop. And we'll see that in a few minutes in our demo file. All right? What if I want to convert my while loop similar to for loop? I shouldn't, but if I want to. So if I want to convert exactly what I have here into while loop, here's my condition, while I is less than 10. And here's my declaration and initialization, which is this piece here. That's my condition, which is this piece here. And my increment or decrement is right there. And I get exactly the same results. That's not the purpose the while loop is created. While loop is for much, much bigger things. While loop is designed to add multiple conditions. You can have multiple conditions, such as you can say, you know what, I'm going to put and here, and I can say if not found. And, or I'm going to call another function, and let's call that function clear flag. I'm going to call that function. So you can see that it can call multiple, it can check multiple conditions, condition 1, condition 2, condition 3. All these conditions can be evaluated. While loop can also check if certain other things happen, such as, if you remember, when we tested this one a couple of weeks ago, we tested if there's end of file, if there's a hidden character end of file. So you can actually use a while loop like this, while not EOF, if you remember that one. You can also use while loop like this, while found. Found could be a Boolean variable. Found could be true or false. You can also check while certain things continue equals yes or no, for example. So while loop can be counter control loop. Counter control means you have a counter, some kind of counter here, I equals to 0, I less than 0, or so on and so forth. While loop could be a centennial value. Centennial value is provided by the user, such as y or n or some other value. Or it could be driven by some kind of Boolean variable or multiple conditions you can see as here. So while loop is the most flexible loop in these modern languages. While loop can give you all sorts of choices. You can convert the while loop exactly like a for loop or much, much more than that one. So if I have just one choice, if I have just to pick one tool for my repetition, that would be a while loop. While loop will be the most useful loop you will ever learn in these languages. Now I'm not predicting that newer languages will not have more powerful loops. They might. But while loop is so far is the most flexible loop you can use. And we'll be using while loop throughout. We have started using while loop even before discussing, especially when it came to read a file until you find end a file, and so on and so forth. So I'll show you a couple of other implementation of the while loop as well. Lastly, there's another loop called do while loop. Now do while loop is similar to while loop. Anybody knows the difference between while and do while loop? What is the difference between those two loops? Yeah, please.
The do while, it's guaranteed to execute at least once.
Right. So do while is like your hippie lifestyle. Everything goes the first time. Share everything. You know what I'm talking, right? So that's your do while loop. The first time is okay. Second time, you know what? Just be careful. So in do while loop, you come in, no checks. There's no key, doors are not locked, just come in. You're welcome. And do whatever you need to do. Then at the end, you check the condition. So, and you can argue that certain things, in certain situations, it's possible you probably want to call some functions, you want to declare some variables, you want to do certain things. So do while might be useful. Regardless, you check the condition at the end, you probably want to do certain things in the first cycle. So do while is beneficial in that case. The for loop and while loop will never let you get in the body of the loop until and unless the conditions or condition is true. If one or multiple conditions are true. In do while, you get in without checking the condition the first time. So you say int I equals to 0, go inside, do whatever you need to do, multiple statements can be executed, and then you check the condition, is 0 less than 10. If the condition is true, go back inside and rerun these statements. Then you can increment again, and so on and so forth. At one stage, this will become 10, then you can check 10 is less than 10, and that's not true, then it exits from the loop because it's false. So you guys okay with that one? Okay, so do while in most of the chapters, in most of the books, has a smaller discussion. Because if you know how to use a while loop, because that's where we'll be spending most of our time, rest of the semester, and also we'll be using for loop in several places. So you can easily convert that into do while loop. One more thing I would like to highlight here, the do while loops end with a semicolon. There's a semicolon at the end. There's no semicolon for a for loop. There's no semicolon here. There's no semicolon after while loop. Notice that there's no semicolon involved. So inside the body, yes, you can have statements with semicolons, but the while and for loop, there are no semicolons. If you make a mistake, if you put a semicolon here, that's a logical mistake because the program thinks that this is where the loop ends. And this becomes a separate body. This body or these statements will run as separate statements. So that's a logical error. Because you wanted to run these statements if the condition or conditions were true. But if they become a separate body, they will run regardless. So that's a logical issue. But do while ends with a semicolon. Typically this in exam number 2, that's always a good question. So I'll give you a semicolon. I'll ask you a question in the second exam. Okay? Can I go to the demo? Any questions on this one? So pretty straightforward, pretty simple stuff. This is a smaller chapter, quicker chapter, so we'll go through our demo file now. And in our demo file, let's take a look if I can capture my demo on the camera, if it's possible. That would be nice. Okay, I'm right behind you guys. Right behind you. This one a little bit here. All right, so what we'll do, I copied and pasted this program for our Moodle site. This program is available. So here is my for loop. Here's my for loop. Int I equals to 0, 0 less than 10, I plus plus. So condition is true, it goes inside, and it actually runs this statement. So when I run this program, when I hit Control F5, I get expected results. So it says inside the for loop 0 through 9. And the first value is 0, the last value is 9. At one stage, in cycle number 11, the value of I becomes 10, then the condition becomes false. Can I start this loop with 1 instead of 0? Can I say initial value is 1? Sure. So how many times it's going to run now? 9 times, because 1 through 9, because once it becomes 10, it's going to stop. What if I want to run 10 times? What should I do? Okay, less than or equal to. If I put equal sign here, less than equal, I'm going to capture on the camera. So now my condition is my initial value is 1 and less than or equal to. It's going to run 10 times, 1 through 10. Or I can actually make this one this way as well. Less than 11. I less than 11. Still it's going to run 10 times, 1 through 10. Because at one stage it becomes 11. 11 is not less than 11. So it stops. Okay? All right, so you'll say this is easy stuff. It is easy stuff. So let's go one step further. So I'm going to comment out this program here, and I would like to take exactly the same program. Didn't change anything. Instead of cout command I, I'm going to display asterisk. So when I do that, it's going to display 10 of those asterisks on the top. As you can see on the camera, 10 of those asterisks are displayed on the top. Nothing major. What if I want to change these to some other funny looking ASCII values? So let's go to the ASCII chart. So I can simply Google on ASCII chart. I recommend the same thing you do it at home. Simply type ASCII chart. And let's pick one of the tables. I would like to show this to the people at home. So this is the ASCII chart. I simply Googled on ASCII chart. And notice that some of these values, especially if I want to pick up one of these characters, this character here has a value of 220. I would like to display that character, or maybe 223. Let's see which one fits better. So I can actually create a line and maybe make a box, maybe a rectangular box. Let's try it. So if I want to pick 220, I can declare that variable right here. I can say char ch equals to 220. I initialize to 220. And here I simply display that character, ch. I'm going to run this 40 times just to see what happens. I run it. And now you can see there's a line over there. And I use the ASCII value 220. I can make maybe a copy of this one and make another line underneath. Maybe I can find some of the vertical ones. And just for the camera, I would like to show the program here. So I declared char ch equals to 220. And 220 refers to an ASCII value which looks like a solid, small, square kind of character. And I'm simply displaying that ch over here. Okay, so very simple program, and you can actually display that character there. What if I want to display a vertical line? What should I change in my program? What needs to be changed so it becomes a vertical line? I'd like to make a vertical line. What should I change here? I should add end line. End line where? Immediately after CH, if I put ENDL, it's going to give me a vertical line. Let's try it. So I have a program right underneath here, and that gives me, the only thing different would be that it has an ENDL. So instead of this character here, asterisk, I'm going to copy this one, put this one here, call this one CH2, and find a different character from Ascii chart. Maybe find 221. 221 or 222. So 221, and display that CH there. And you have to tweak it. You have to play with it a little bit. So this is what I have for the camera. So I have CH2, character declared, 221. I would like to display that one with the ENDL. Once that one is added, so now you can see, and if you don't like it, you can always go back and tweak it. Maybe you wanted to combine them. You wanted to have a solid vertical line. Then you can change it. Go ahead.
I don't think you displayed CH2. I think you displayed CH.
Oh, you're probably right. Yeah. Yeah. So I need to change this variable. So let's try again. Yeah. So as you can see, there's solid line there. Notice there's an ENDL because there is an ENDL right there. So what if I get rid of this ENDL from here? So now you can see, and there's something else going on the top. I can take care of that one, but you can see right there. So it looks like a nice box on each side. And I can, if I spend a little bit more time, I can make an exact square or rectangle shaped box. You guys okay? So we know how to create a horizontal line, a vertical line. If I can do this, what about a square? Can I make a square? Can I make a square with a for loop? Let's try it. What if I take my top program, the program which I used this one, and take the bottom program and combine them, make them nested for loop? What I'm referring here is this program here. So this program is, I took my horizontal line. This is my horizontal line program. Horizontal line program. And I put this one inside another for loop. Didn't change anything. Just put it inside the for loop. Instead of C out, I put it inside there. And I took my ENDL at the end, outside of the for loop. So this inner loop is going to give me one straight horizontal line. Then I'll get ENDL. Then the outer loop is going to say, do this 10 times. So I'll get 10 of those. So if I change this to maybe a little bit more, maybe let's make this one 20, let's make this one 18. Let's run it. So you have a square. It doesn't look like a square, more like a rectangle. And you can play with these numbers, and you can have a shape which looks like more like a square. Okay? You guys okay with that? The challenge is, what if I want to make a triangle? What should I do? What should I do for triangle? So the triangle program will be exactly what I have. The only thing different, and this is for the people at home. The only thing different is if I change the condition here. I'll leave my outer loop the way it is, only if I change my inner condition. Right now my inner condition is checking 18 times. What if I connect my inner condition with the outer variable, I variable? What if I change this to j is less than I? And let's make it smaller triangle so I have more space. So let's spend a couple of minutes on this one. So my initial value for the outer loop is 0. And then I go inside the inner loop. And inner loop is declares and initializes the variable j equals to 0. I check, is 0 less than 0? Condition is false. Nothing really happens. and it adds an ENDL, and this loop is exhausted. This loop is exhausted because this value was 0, this value was 0 in the first cycle. Then the outer loop is still up and running because it is incremented to 1. Then I go back to the J loop second time. I redeclared the J loop second time. And this time I check, is 0 less than 1? Condition is true. I display one character. So I display one character right there. And then J becomes 1. 1 is not less than 1. It exits out from the loop. Then I becomes 2. Then it checks, is 0 less than 2? Answer is yes. Is 1 less than 2? Answer is yes. And it exits from the loop. In the next cycle, it displays 3 of them, 4 of them, and so on and so forth. So just changing that, that condition, it's going to display a triangle for you, as you can see right there. Displays a triangle. Okay? What if I want to take this triangle, put it in the middle, somewhere in the middle of the screen? What should I change in my program? Something very minor. Something really, really, really minor. I can put a tab. So that's exactly what I do. I put a tab. That's the only change I can make. And by putting a tab here, I already did that one. Right here. I put a tab here. In fact, I put 3 tabs right there. Every time I go inside, for displaying my characters, it goes to about 24 spaces. Each tab is 8 spaces. So it's going to display on the 24th location every time. First character and all other characters. So this time you can see this one is like somewhere in the middle of the screen. What if you want to display this one backwards, reverse triangle, like this? What should I do? Well, if I start this one, assuming this is the 20th column, if I start from the 20th column and maybe decrement the value to the 19th column, then 18th column, the 17th column, maybe I can display those characters. There are multiple ways you can do it. In the next cycle, it will be 19th column. Then it's going to go and display in that order. So instead of using \T tab, I can use set W, which we learned 3-4 weeks ago. So I just remove \T and put set W K. What is K? K is just a variable. Wherever you want to display your characters. Let's say K is the location 20th. So I initialized my K to 20. You can put any value you want. So it goes to the 20th location, 20th column, displays one character, adds the ENDL, then decrements the K. K is decremented here to 19th position. Next time it's going to go to the 19th position to display 2 characters, then 3 characters, and so on and so forth. So this time you will have a reverse triangle. Okay, so I can do a regular triangle. I can do reverse triangle. Can I do upside down triangle? Maybe something like this. Something like that. Can I do this backward reverse triangle? What do you think what this shape looks like? Like a diamond, right? So looks like this, right? How many loops did I need for this triangle? 2 for loops, right? How many loops are used for this one? 2 for loops. How many loops are used here? 2 for loops. How many here? So how many total loops I have to create those 4 triangles? 8, right? Can I create this entire diamond with 1 for loop? Not 2. Not 2 nested, just 1. Altogether 1 for loop. So what if I ask you to just do this 1 for loop? It's possible, In every semester, in every section, we have 1 or 2 students. They can do it. It will be a 10 bonus point assignment. If you want to do it, you don't have to. But if you want to try it, don't Google on it, because I'm going to ask you to come and present. So if you cannot tell me how you did it, you'll not get the credit. So only one for loop, not one nested for loop, just one for loop. If you can do with 2 for loops, like nested 2 for loops, that would be outstanding. That's really a big achievement. Doing with 1 is really, really, really hard. That used to be our assignment number 5. That's where I lost most of my students. So that's why it's not assignment number 5 anymore. In fact, if you look at the handout out of assignment 5, I have changed with my hand a few times, because that was used to be assignment 5. So this one is just a bonus. Try it. If you have chance, you want to challenge yourself and say, I understand for loop. For loop is a really simple loop. I want to try it. So that would be a good exercise to work on. So in fact, every chapter they talk about these triangles. Our book also talks about these triangles. Okay. For loop can be used for other purposes as well, and I have some examples. I don't need to show you those examples. I'm going to jump directly to the while loop. And while loop is, this is what I have on the board earlier. So I'm going to comment out a few of these things from the top, so we have a clean run. So here's my while loop. And this is the while loop I have on the board. So I start my variable with the 0. I check is 0 less than 10, and I go inside. Really simple usage of a while loop. Again, that's not why you want to use the while loop. We just wanted to test it, and here it is. We tested it successfully. It does exactly what we did with the for loop. So while loop can be used as a for loop in a similar fashion. While loop can also be used something like this. So let's declare a couple of variables here. And for this demo, I have to probably create a simple file. Because in this demo, let me explain what this demo is asking. This demo is expecting that you have some password file where you have all the passwords, user IDs and passwords saved. Some kind of database file. It could be encrypted or decrypted. So we can do either way. Initially, we can start with the regular file without encryption, but it can be encrypted file as well. And then we can read the data and decrypt it. So it's asking for user ID and password. So for that, I need a volunteer who can give me your user ID and password. I'm not asking for your bank. How about your Facebook user ID and password? Any volunteers? Seta, you want to share? No, thank you. Okay, so let's say username is Seta and password. Okay, just share your password. Your Bank of America password. Okay. Okay, so password is Seta, all lowercase, Seta Hero, all lowercase. Seta is hero. Let's say that's the password. It could be a PIN, it could be a simple PIN. Let's start with the PIN. So let's say Seta goes to the ATM machine and uses a PIN. Let's say the PIN is 4579. That's the PIN. So I want to plug in these in my files, the file which I'm going to read. So I'm going to go to my source file location, add this file here, call this one pass file, and add and I'll show this to the camera as well. So I put, is it lowercase, uppercase Seta, and password is Seta Hero. Right, so I'm just creating a simple text file, assuming this text file or this database has, or this table has millions and millions of user IDs and passwords. So I'm going to compare this user ID and password with the user. So user is going to type his or her user ID and password, and then we'll compare. If they match, we'll give access to the user. You can access this account. If they do not match, we'll deny the user. We'll give 3 choices to the user. So user will have 3 choices. So let me just verify. Let me save this one. And the name of the file is pass file. So let's go back to our program. Let's see what name we have, pass file. That's perfect. That matches. So Setha will be read here, and Setha's password will be read here. Then we run this program. When we run this program, the user will be providing his or her username right there. Then user will be providing his or her password here. So in this case, I'm sorry. I forgot. It actually is a PIN. So let me go back and change it. So it's a PIN. So let's put 4579. You can put a password also. It doesn't really matter in this program. But I just want to follow along. So when I run this program, if I can figure it out, let's see what the error is. So it's just telling me that I redeclared and initialized twice. Yes, that's true. So let's hide it. Let's try again. I don't want to show inside while loop. Inside while loop, which is happening right there. I want to get rid of that program. Get rid of that program. Okay, let's try again. It's still happening here. I forgot to get rid of that one. Okay, let's try again. Okay, so here it is. It's asking for username. Asking for username there. And I'm going to type incorrect username. So I'm going to type something over here and some kind of PIN over here. And it says invalid username or password. Notice that we can actually capture right away either the username was incorrect or password was incorrect. But most of the websites, most of the apps, they don't do that. They do not want to provide you that information. Which information did not match? They just tell you one of these pieces of information were incorrect. So same thing over here. So we are not telling the user what information, what data was incorrect. Asking the second time, so we'll give 3 choices. Second time we enter something else, something here. It says invalid. We'll do the same thing again and enter something here. It says permission to access the system denied. Please check your username and password. So at that stage, based on your company's requirements, how your policies are, you can lock out that particular user. Some companies, they lock out for 24 hours. Some, you have to call them. Some, there are other mechanisms. You have to revalidate, send a PIN to your phone, or there are different ways. Send an email to your some kind of reactivation code. So you can actually, based on those policies, you can do that. Let's read on this program one more time. This time we'll give correct information. So if I run this program again, and I say the name is Setha, and PIN is 4579, and did I use uppercase? Let me just verify. Uppercase S. So let me try one more time. So Setha. And by the way, you can also control this one. Do you really care about uppercase, lowercase? You can control that one as a developer. 4579. So this time it says if you provide correct username and password PIN, login successful, and the user can log into their account. Okay? So that's where the power of while comes in. The main purpose was not to show you how to access the file or how to compare. The main purpose was that you can actually go through this while loop. And let's see what happens in the while loop. So I'm actually checking the counter. If the counter which was set to 0 is 0 less than 3. And somewhere in this loop, I increment the counter to 1, then 2, then 3. And I'm also checking if the flag is true. If the flag is true. Initially, it is set to true, and I'm constantly checking if the flag is true. So both of these conditions must be true. The counter must be less than 3, and the flag has to be true. Then I allow the user to get in. User provides the username and password and the PIN. After I capture that one, I compare right here. I do the comparison. The first comparison happens here. The comparison I'm doing is the username given by the user and username from the file. I'm comparing those two. Also same thing with the PIN. If they match, I say login is successful and I change my flag to false. If my flag is false, I will exit from the while loop in the first cycle. If the flag is not false, it's true, then I'll stay in the while loop. Else, if this was not true, else I go and display a message, invalid username and password, and I increment my counter by 1. I increment my counter by 1 right here, which means that initially it was 0, then it becomes 1. Next cycle it will become 2. At one stage, I will use the counter clock loop to exit out. If everything was as planned, if the flag was true, I just display a message, permission to access the system is denied, and please check your username and password just in case if the user did not have the right information. Okay? Okay? I know I'm losing some of you. I know some of you are getting tired. I spent too much time on the robot. I should not have done that. So I know some of you are really, really getting tired. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes very quickly, maybe a couple of minutes on do-while loop. Do-while loop is a really, really simple loop. I'm going to comment out a few things from here. All this will be commented out. And by the way, we'll be using these loops throughout the semester. There's another application of while loop here, and we have done this kind of program in the past. We'll come back and we'll use later on as well. This is the program. We did a program, right, where we read a file and we verified the characters were invalid or valid, right?
Yes.
We did in that class. So that's the program right there. If the character was, like, let's say you're trying to read salary, right there. If the salary was invalid, it goes to the fail state, clear it, ignore it, read the salary again. So it's that kind of loop. Just for demonstration purposes, you can actually, and this loop is sitting, this while loop is sitting in another while loop right there. Oh, sorry, in another while loop right here. And this while loop is sitting in another while loop. So this example, this is a good example of nested loops, 3 nested loops right there. So you have a loop which asks the user, do you want to continue, yes or no? Then inside it says, have you read the entire file? If the file has not ended, continue to read. Inside here, it checks if there are some invalid characters, stay in this loop until you have cleared all the bad characters. So that's a good example of nesting. So that's a nesting. Nesting means loop within loop, just like we did with if conditions and switch and if. I'm going to move on, and the last thing I would like to show you is the do-while loop. And this is a simple application of do-while loop here. This is very similar to our first for loop. So I have a variable called I equals to 0. And do I check a condition in the first cycle? I do not in do-while. I go inside, display I, value of I is 0. 0 will be displayed. I increment my I to 5 or increase by 5. And I check, is 5 less than 30? Condition is yes, true. I go back here, display my 5. Make it 10. Is 10 less than 30? Yes, display 10 and increment to 15. And it's going to stop at one stage when I becomes 30. So when I run this one, it shows me all those values. So I equals to 0, I equals to 5, I equals to 10, 15, and so on and so forth. Okay? Okay, let's actually do a wrap up. Where do we use a for loop? You know that certain number of cycles you have to go through. You already are sure there are 500 employees in that company. You want to produce their paychecks, so you want to run 500 times. Where do you want to use while loop? You're not sure. You're not sure. You want to do multiple conditions. You do not know how many cycles. You probably have some complex functions you have to call within the loop. Then you want to use a while loop. Where do you want to use your do while loop? Similar to while loop, but at least you want to allow the statements in the body of the loop to be accessed the first time without checking the condition. Okay? So all loops, they have their own place in programming languages. If you understand these loops, you can really create very, very powerful programs. And really powerful programs. And the loops will give you what was missing from chapter 4. Chapter 4, we talked about checking the conditions. Here, not only we are checking the conditions, we are also going in cycles or repetitions in order to process more than one record. So we can process more records. Okay? So let's talk about our project, then I'll stop. Our project number 5 is an easier project, easier than project number 4. In project number 4, which I have graded this evening, you can check your grades. And by the way, this used to be project 3. You can still see 3 right there. So I made it project 5. But in this project, we have 6 records. I want you to create an input file. Do not type this information in your program. You need to read an input file. So this is an input file. Call it whatever you want to call it. Your data.txt or project5.txt. You have 3 types of data in this file. You have the name of the item. It's a hardware store. That's a chisel. Quantity of the item, 50. And unit cost of an item. And you have 6 items. You have chisel, hammer, nails, bolts, nuts, and soap. 6 items. So how many variables do you need? 1 for the item name. What kind of variable that would be? String. 1 for the quantity. What kind of item you want to have? What kind of variable you want to have? I prefer double. Why? For more precision, because you will be maybe multiplying, maybe doing some calculations. So declare both of them as doubles. So double variable for your quantity, double variable for your unit cost. Pick up these items and process them. Process to what? So process in a way that you pick up the first item and display the first item, left justified, right justified the quantity, right justify your unit cost, multiply these together to produce $499.50. So that's basically this multiplied this. Those 2 items, those 2 values will give you $499.50. You pick up the second item, third item, fourth item, fifth item, and 6 items. So you'll have all 6 items placed here. It would be nice if you can display these characters for lines, if you could. I showed you how to do that in Ascii Chart. So try it. If you're unable to figure out these corners, some of you can. I'm sure there are ASCII characters for those corners. You can find an ASCII corner right there. You can find this one. There are 4 different corners. There are 4 different characters. Play with it. Try it. If you don't do it, you will not be penalized, but try it. And once you have calculated each individual unit cost, total unit cost for each item, then you'll have a grand total. Grand total is 42.58. This is the incorrect answer. I think it's 42 or 43.58. 42.58 maybe. So that will be a grand total, 4,258 something, maybe 15 cents. So that will be a grand total. Yeah.
Do you want us to just use the 6 sample, or do we write our own?
No, just those 6 items. So you pick up the items from a file. Where do you spit out the results? I want to see in 2 places. On the black screen, the console, also in the output file. Okay? Do you think we can do that? Do you need to use a loop? Absolutely. Should we use a for loop? You could. I prefer a while loop. But if you want to use a for loop to read 6 items, that's fine. That will work. But try both of them, because we are learning in this process, so try both of them. Use the for loop to run 6 times. If it works, comment it out, put a while loop. While not in.eof. See if you can figure it out. And then go from there. Sami, you had a question? Okay. Joanna?
So 2 screenshots of the console and the right?
So for the screenshot of the console, yes. For the output.txt or report.txt, just upload that file. No screenshot, just upload that file. Some of you are not uploading the CPP files as a submission. So I need to see a CPP file regardless you have your screenshots. Some of you are uploading screenshots of the code. I don't need the screenshot of the code because I run your code. I need your CPP file, but I need a screenshot of your running program. For example, when you ran your quadratic equation, so you had two imaginary solutions, so I want to see the imaginary solution. That's the screenshot. In a real system, you do have multiple files. You upload multiple files to the client site. So we are just going through that process that you have multiple files, documentation, and different diagrams, and different types of pseudocode, and prototypes, all those different things. This assignment is much easier. This assignment is due by 15th, which is Sunday, and I'm hoping that we can do it easily without much trouble. Was there another question? Yeah.
You have to print it exactly like that with the box?
Try it. Once you are getting the results and you have some extra time in hand, don't ask me. I'm not going to help you because this will not give you any extra bonus points. This will give you bonus points. And do not ask me how do I do it because that's a bonus point. I'm not going to tell you how. So don't say I'm going to get 10 bonus points because I did poorly in the exam one. I'm going to just Google on it, and you'll find some people have already uploaded that program. You'll find in University of Florida or somewhere. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just try it. The main idea is, and this is not for everyone. If you are really frustrated, this is probably not for you. This is for a couple of people in this class. But you can try it.
It's still competitive you do with two? One test?
No.
You can't do it with
Yeah. You can do it, but I'll really hug you and I'll be very happy. I'll say, great job, but no credit, no bonus points. Okay, I'm going to stop and then we